Today, we're taking an early look at the 2025 to 26 NBA Power Rankings, guided by our NBA AD Jeff ratings, which are built on last season's statistical performance. For rookies, we're using projected values based on efficiency and production at lower levels, then adjusting for how we expect it all to translate to the NBA. Now, a quick but important note: key players like Jason Tatum in Boston, Kyrie Irving in Dallas, Tyrese Halliburton in Indiana, and Murray in New Orleans have all been excluded from these team rankings. Why? Long-term injuries. While some of them might return later in the season, we factored in their expected limited availability and potential drop-off in effectiveness when building these projections. So if you're wondering why a team looks low and one of those names is missing, that's why. All right. Let's get into it. Let's start at the top of the East this year, and I'll be honest, it's not what you think. Orlando comes in ranked number 1 in the East and number 2 in the entire NBA. Yeah, that same Magic team that went 41-41 last year. Wild, right? And look, I wasn't even a huge fan of the Desmond Bane trade when it happened. Bane only ranks 61st in my model, and neither Franz Wagner nor Paolo Banchero cracks the top 25. Wagner is 26th at 455, and Banchero comes in 31st at 447. But here's the thing, this team is all about depth. When your 10th best player is Jonathan Isaac, who still ranks 188th, you've built a team that can absolutely eat during the regular season, especially in today's NBA, full of missed games, injuries, and load management. They've got Goga Batadze at 78th, Mo Wagner at 52nd, and solid role guys like Jalen Suggs, Wendell Carter Jr., Anthony Black, and Tyus Jones, all ranked between 100 and 160. That's depth on depth. Defensively, they were number 2 in the league last year, and I don't see that going anywhere. That gives them a high floor no matter what. Are they a playoff juggernaut? Probably not. But in the regular season, this is the kind of team that racks up wins just by showing up every night with more capable dudes than you. Sliding in at number 2 in the East, we've got the New York Knicks, who are 7th overall in the NBA rankings. New coach, same core issues. There's talent here, sure, but a lot depends on Mitchell Robinson's ability to stay healthy. He's ranked 141st in the model, which isn't high, but his value as a defensive anchor is obvious when he's actually on the floor. Karl Anthony Towns is their big-ticket guy. He's ranked 8th overall at 5.23, and that alone gives them a legit star-level offensive piece. Even with Jalen Brunson ranked 28th at 4.50 and a bunch of capable wings like Josh Hart at 76, OG Anunoby at 95, and Mikal Bridges at 132, this still feels like a team that might struggle to reach that next level. Also, side note, I would love to see Jay Wright coaching this Nova reunion squad. But Mike Brown, he's a solid, proven NBA guy and might give them a better shot to finally break through in the playoffs. Atlanta coming in 3rd in the East and 9th overall in the NBA. I really liked what they did this offseason. Let's start at the top. Kristaps Porzingis, ranked 15th overall in my model with a 4.90 rating, was a massive addition. If he stays healthy, and that's always the qualifier with KP, he could be a game changer. And his stretch shooting and rim protection give this team a dimension they just haven't had in years. Jalen Johnson and Onyeka Okongwu both came in at 3.83. That's 63rd and 64th nationally. Young, switchable, athletic, and right in that breakout sweet spot. They aren't just role players anymore. These guys are legit. And then there's Trae Young coming in at 69th overall with a 3.76. Look, Trae's scoring efficiency and free throw rate have dipped since the rules changed. He's aging into a new phase of his career, but with more help now, especially a big like KP who can space the floor, we could see a renaissance season. Dyson Daniels comes in at 88th with a 3.45, an underrated addition. He's a connector on both ends. and I think he'll quietly make a difference. Now, after the top 100, the depth takes a bit of a dip, but there are still some interesting pieces. Asa Newell, ranked 190th with a 2.40 big-time potential as a rookie. Luke Kennard at 224 with a 2.15 rating, a shooting specialist who could swing a few games with his range. Nickeil Alexander-Walker at 234 and Zachary Rissacher at 246, both hovering around the low twos. Rissacher's still developing, but the upside is intriguing if he adjusts quickly. Overall, this team is shaping up to contend. There's top-end talent, solid support, and enough upside to push even higher than fourth in the East. If KP stays upright and Trey rediscovers some of that old magic, this might be one of the most dangerous teams in the league come playoff time. At number 4 in the East, Philadelphia, 10th overall in the league, and yeah, that's kind of a red flag for how shallow the East looks this year. But this team still has upside, and if they can stay healthy, that's a huge if. Embiid, even with some decline, is still ranked 11th in the model at 5.03. Tyrese Maxey clocks in at 48th with a 4.12. That 1-2 punch, still dangerous if they're upright heading into the postseason. They also had a really strong draft, in my opinion. Broom is already one of the most NBA-ready bigs, ranked 153rd, and he should help reduce Embiid's workload early. VJ Edgecombe is already flashing in Summer League and comes in at 165th, solid value there. Jared McCain and Bona also cracked the top 200, giving them even more playable young depth. Paul George, yeah, the contract is bad, no doubt, but he's still 106th in the model, and he can give you value if he holds up physically. This Sixers roster has legit playoff potential if they're healthy, but let's be honest, that sentence has been true for like 5 straight years. All right, Cleveland coming in 5th in the East and 11th overall in the NBA. I know what you're thinking. Wait, didn't they win 64 games last season? Yeah, they did. But the numbers are the numbers, and playoff performance matters. They got bounced, and pretty easily. Let's break it down. The top 4, still strong. Evan Mobley is a stud, ranked 10th with a 5.06, a defensive anchor who's steadily growing offensively. Jared Allen comes in at 19th with a 4.81, still incredibly efficient around the rim. Donovan Mitchell, 25th overall at 4.55. We know what he brings. Elite scoring and shot creation. Darius Garland, 41st at 424, though he's coming off injury. That's something to keep an eye on. But after that, it falls off a cliff. DeAndre Hunter is their 5th best player at 115th with a 3.07 rating. Then it's Max Strus at 232, Craig Porter Jr. at 255, and even Lonzo Ball sneaking in at 299. Ty Jerome, who ranked 79th in my model, is gone, and he wasn't replaced. So now you got injury risk up top, zero depth behind it, and a team that had a lot of injury luck last year. That's not sustainable. 5th might feel low, And honestly, with how close 2 through 5 are in the East, they could finish 2nd or even 1st. I wouldn't be shocked. The continuity and star power are there. But I don't juice the talent ratings for vibes, and coaching doesn't shift NBA rankings like it might in college. So yeah, the numbers say 5th, and the bench says proceed with caution. Let's head to the Great White North first. And no, I'm not talking about Santa's division. I'm talking about Toronto. The Raptors check in at 6th in the East and 14th overall in our NBA rankings, which honestly feels generous, given the current state of the roster. I know Scotty Barnes has been the media darling, but let's keep it real. He's overrated. A 3.93 in our model. Respectable, man, but not franchise-altering. If we're being honest, Jakob Poeltl, the guy who constantly gets ripped for his contract, is actually their best player impact-wise, posting a 4.44. He's not flashy, but he's effective. After that, you've got Brandon Ingram, 89th at 342. R.J. Barrett, 3.51. Emmanuel Quickly, right behind him at 350. And some filler pieces like Sandro Mamukelashvili at 3.04. Not exactly a murderer's route. There's just not much of a direction here. It's kind of floating, and as much as I love our northern neighbors, this team feels stuck in no man's land. Not bad enough to tank, not good enough to win. Classic treadmill. Slide down to Miami, and you get the sense that Pat Riley just can't let go. Projected 7th in the East, 15th overall after the Norm Powell trade. Before that, they were sitting at 23rd. So yeah, it was a steal to get the 67th best player in the model for Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson. It feels like a team trying to stay relevant, but without a real plan. Tyler Herro and Bam Adebayo are the headliners, 421 and 420 respectively. But after that, the depth just falls off a cliff. Andrew Wiggins brings in a 3.53. Kel'el Ware is a promising young piece at 3.12, but nobody here is moving the needle like they did back in the Big Three days. Butler gave them a great run, but let's be honest, stars aren't forcing their way to Miami anymore. At some point, you'd have to look to the draft and stop playing the nostalgia game. Detroit lands 8th in the East and 17th overall in the NBA. They're young, like really young, and there could be another step forward, especially if guys like Cade Cunningham, ranked 29th at 4.48, and Jalen Duren, 32nd, 4.46, keep ascending. They've got talent. Jaden Ivey, ranked 108th with a 3.16. Ausar Thompson, 110th, 3.14. Even Tobias Harris is still helpful and ranked 120th, 3.06. But despite the potential, this just feels like a meh team right now. Kind of in that also ran category in the East. Not bad, not great, just floating somewhere in that middle tier. There's a path to a higher ceiling, sure. But for now, this looks like a play-in or fringe playoff team that still needs time to cook. Speaking of also rans, Chicago is next. No clue what the long-term plan is here, but they've got enough to be in the playoff mix, coming in 9th in the East and 18th overall. The talent's spread out. Nikola Vucevic leads them at 36th overall, 4.39. Josh Giddey is a new piece, ranked 54th, 3.91. Solid playmaker with size. Jalen Smith is sneaky productive, 73rd, 3.67. Kobe White showed some growth in 103rd, 3.23. But after that, it gets murky. Ayo Dosunmu, 157th, 2.64. Zach Collins, 166, 2.60. Trey Jones, 182, 2.49. Kevin Huerter, 250, 1.91. Now in more of a supporting role. It's a weird roster. Not bad, not great, just stuck. A classic treadmill team, good enough to make the playoffs. Probably not good enough to scare anyone once they get there. Now let's talk Charlotte. Projected 10th in the East, 22nd overall. It's getting to that make or break point where if they don't go for it now, it might be time to blow it all up. I actually like the Colin Sexton pickup. He rates at a solid 3.01, and he's the kind of aggressive scoring guard this team needs. LaMelo Ball leads the way at 4.00, and Miles Bridges isn't far behind at 3.75. Then you got Brandon Miller coming off a nice rookie season at 3.06, and some interesting depth in guys like Josh Okogie, 2.65, Spencer Dinwiddie, 221, and even Con Knueppel, who could develop. If this team doesn't sniff the playoffs in this version of the East, time to tear it down and rethink everything. Ball, Bridges, it's now or never. The clock is ticking. Milwaukee. This one hurts to say, but it's looking bleak. They come in 11th in the East, 24th overall in the NBA, and outside of Giannis, this roster is borderline unwatchable. The Dame Lillard move, pure desperation. A last-ditch effort to keep Giannis happy, but with Dame gone, it's just a shell of a contender. Giannis, of course, is still elite. A monster 6.86 rating, third best in the league. But the rest of the roster, Miles Turner 3.58, Bobby Portis 3.45. They're fine, but not remotely enough. Kevin Porter Jr. and Gary Trent Jr., They're just eating up cap space at this point. If Giannis drags this team to the playoffs, it might be the most impressive carry job of his career. And that's saying something, but let's be honest. This thing feels doomed to fail. That wraps up teams 8 through 11 in the East. And as you can probably tell, a common theme here is lack of direction. Whether it's rebuilding, retooling, or just refusing to pick a lane, each of these teams feels like they're stuck in the NBA's version of purgatory. Coming up next, we'll dive into teams 12 through 15. And trust me, it gets even messier. All right, now we get to the shocker, Boston. They're 25th overall, 12th in the East, and man, this one stings. At first, I didn't believe it, but the numbers don't lie. Injuries, sell-offs, letting key pieces walk, it's all catching up. Tatum is still ranked 17th in the league with a 4.88, but I'm not convinced he even plays this year, and if he doesn't, this team is toast. Jaylen Brown is solid, 57th, 3.85. Derek White and Peyton Pritchard are in that 3.6 range. But let's be honest, those guys aren't carrying a franchise. They're elite role players, not engines. They probably should try to move on from Brown and White while the value is still high. This looks like a gap year. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Golden State did it. Now Boston probably has to. They've got their own pick. Just take the medicine. Indiana, 26th overall, 13th in the East. And yeah, this is rough. They had something special going, and they felt like more than the sum of their parts. Carlisle squeezed a lot out of that roster. Maybe he can get this group higher, but this roster is not good, and this year it's hard to see it happening. Halliburton is still a stud, ranked 20th overall with a 4.68. Honestly, even that might underrate him a little. He unlocked so much for them. Pascal Siakam is still very good, 47 at 4.12, but losing Miles Turner hurts. He was important to their identity. Mathurin, Toppin, and Nesmith are all decent rotation guys in the 2.6 to 2.8 range. And Andrew Nembhard and TJ McConnell are reliable, but they're not difference makers. There was a little magic the past couple years, some injury luck, some clutch wins. But it feels like all that karma just swung back the other way. This could be a brutal year in Indy. All right, let's talk about the bottom of the barrel in the Eastern Conference spot because someone's got to be there. Next, Washington, 28th in the NBA, 14th in the East. And honestly, it could be worse. They blew it up, and that's exactly what they should have done. It was time. They're rocking a 2.4 team rating, but they actually have a path to staying out of dead last if they want to. I really like the Cam Whitmore trade. It's a gamble, but he's got the potential to pop. Could be a future star if he figures it out. As for the roster, C.J. McCollum ranks 107th with a 3.16 rating, still capable of putting up buckets. Chris Middleton is hanging in there at 144 with a 2.82, though he's definitely not what he once was. After that, the depth falls off quickly. Justin Champagnie, Richaun Holmes, Tristan Vukcevic, all in the mid-20s. You've got a couple young wild cards, too. Alex Sarr, 2.22, Bilal Coulibaly, Duzer. If either of them takes a leap, that could be interesting. But really, this team is about asset collection and playing the long game. Next up, Brooklyn, 29th in the NBA, 15th in the East. They got scorers, but not a lot else. Cam Thomas is their top guy, 71st overall, 3.69 rating, and yeah, he can fill it up. Michael Porter Jr. is 92nd at 3.38, and Day'Ron Sharpe and Nick Claxton round out a respectable top 100 group, both right around 3.3. The problem, that's about all there is. Zaire Williams, Tosan Evbuomwan, Danny Wolf, those are your depth pieces, and none of them crack a 2.0. They do have their draft pick, so unless they start overperforming early, which I don't expect, they'll probably lean into the tank and start selling off more, which again is what they should do. All right, let's take an early look at the 2025 to 26 Western Conference Power Rankings. Let's kick things off with the Western Conference powerhouses and their NBA rankings heading into the season. First up, Oklahoma City Thunder, sitting at number 1 overall in the NBA and topping the West. This team is a fascinating study in redemption and potential. Sam Presti's tenure during the Durant-Westbrook-Harden era was widely criticized for mismanagement, but this new Thunder squad is set up better than almost any franchise in history, arguably even better than that superstar era. They've already proven their mettle as champions. But the real story? It's the depth. An embarrassment of riches, honestly. With 11 players ranked inside the top 215, and a front office that's not afraid to roll with their full rotation, they're virtually bulletproof when it comes to injuries, and they've stockpiled draft picks to handle any curveballs before the trade deadline. The future looks very bright. Most of these players are still on the upswing, growing and improving, so multiple titles should be well within reach. Now, it's worth noting that last season, they were pushed to 7 games by a limping Denver and nearly upset by Indiana, teams that arguably shouldn't have been that competitive. So you want to see them dominate more consistently, but that's a minor quibble. Given the dynasty likely on the horizon, enjoy the competitive playoffs while they last, folks, because the Thunder are poised to dominate the next few years. Next, we slide down just a bit to the Denver Nuggets, ranked 3rd overall and 2nd in the West. They're painfully close to championship glory, and have been for a couple years now. Yet they've fallen short, not because of the stars, but due to a lack of depth and some questionable bench investments. If they had just added another key piece or two off the bench, their championship odds would have skyrocketed. But here we are, still, and with the best player in the world, Nikola Jokic leading the charge, and solid contributors like Cameron Johnson, Jamal Murray, and Jonas Valanciunas, Denver is firmly back in the mix. That said, it's still a mismanagement of Jokic's prime. They've cheaped out at every turn, and now many of these players are on the decline. It's an outside shot at a title now, if they want to break through, but don't count them out just yet. Rounding out the top 3 in the West, and 4th overall, the Houston Rockets. They made some savvy moves this offseason, bringing in Kevin Durant via trade, and snagging value free agents like Clint Capella. That's some serious firepower. Houston's young core features Alperen Sengun, Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith Jr., all promising talents, all ranked solidly in the top 150. Add in veterans like Fred VanVleet and Steven Adams to balance things out, and this team looks ready to compete at a high level. Next up, the LA Clippers. They're 4th in the West and 5th overall in the NBA. Everyone talks about Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, sometimes even forgetting Ivica Zubac, who was actually their best player last year. The man is severely underrated. Adding a quality backup like Brook Lopez should help lighten the load for him this season. Unfortunately, I'd expect regression from Kawhi, Harden, and Powell, so it might be a bumpy ride. Looking at the player ratings, Zubac leads the Clippers at 508, Kawhi Leonard at 4.63, James Harden at 447, Norman Powell is right there at 67th, 3.80. Brook Lopez cracks the top 150, 104th, 3.21. There's star power, no doubt, but the clock is ticking, and the window isn't open for long. Now the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas sits 5th in the West and 6th overall in the NBA. And that's without factoring in Kyrie Irving, who could conceivably return for the playoffs. Now, everything hinges on Anthony Davis's health. That's a massive variable, but Dallas definitely has the talent to contend, at least according to our model. The acquisition of Cooper Flagg was basically a get-out-of-jail-free card. We have Flagg projected around 85th overall, which might even be conservative. And I don't expect him to be more than a quality starter or asked to carry a huge load right away, but landing a talent like that, who can contribute immediately? That's incredible fortune for a GM who, let's be honest, pulled off what might be the worst trade in NBA history. Even if Dallas somehow stumbles into a title, with all the info available at the time, that deal still felt like zero-clue territory. Speaking of the roster, let's break down the top Mavericks in our rankings. Anthony Davis, an elite 5.96 rating. Daniel Gafford, 22nd ranked player, 4.64. Kyrie Irving, 39th, fourth 28. Derek Lively 2, 3.81. Cooper Flagg 3.50. 5 guys in the top 100. That's enough firepower to do real damage. If AD stays upright and Kyrie returns in form, coming up next, we'll break down teams 6 through 10 in the West. Moving on to San Antonio, the Spurs come in 6th in the West and 8th overall. Fingers crossed that Victor Wembanyama has put his health issues behind him. At his size, some nagging injuries are almost expected, but they're hopeful. Pop's no longer running the show, which introduces some uncertainty. I'm not completely sold on the roster fit, but the talent is undeniable. It's all on Wembanyama to make it work. He leads the Spurs with a stunning 5.67 rating, one of the highest on our list. De'Aaron Fox comes in at 68th with a 3.76. Luke Cornett and Harrison Barnes hover around the 100 mark with ratings just over 3.0. Switching gears to the Los Angeles Lakers, they sit 7th in the West and 12th overall. Their offseason had some turbulence, losing Finney Smith and missing out on a sharpshooting center like Lopez or Capella left a hole. But hey, they landed DeAndre Ayton, ranked 55th. Solid addition, even if he's not a perfect fit with Luka Doncic style. Speaking of Luka, he's ranked 7th with a 5.43. He's coming off one of his rougher seasons statistically. Last year he posted a 6.22 in this model. So there's still ample upside, if he stays healthy and gels with the squad. LeBron, still a top 15 player, 14th overall with a 4.93 rating. The drama around him is just noise. He's a living legend who still commands respect and impact. Some think he might be out of LA this year, but I don't see that. Next up, the Memphis Grizzlies, ranked 8th in the West and 13th overall in the NBA. They made a savvy move, trading away Desmond Bane, who ranked 61st in our model, and brought back Ty Jerome, ranked 79th, a bit cheaper, but a solid replacement to complement Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. Both Morant and Jackson are studs. Jaren Jackson Jr. is 38th with a 4.32. Ja Morant is 45th at 4.18. Also, watch out for Zach Edey, ranked 102nd with a 3.25. I think he's significantly undervalued and could surprise people. Memphis didn't lose much in talent, but gained flexibility. That haul? Astute, some front office brilliance on display. Finally, the Minnesota Timberwolves, 9th in the West and 16th overall. Anthony Edwards, ranked 34th with a 4.41 rating, is dynamic, but arguably overhyped by the media. Rudy Gobert, at 46th and 4.15, is still a defensive anchor, but maybe slipping. Mike Conley, ranked 193rd, hasn't lived up to the physical gifts expected. Overall, this roster looks like it's in a holding pattern with more decline than improvement expected. So there you have it. The Western Conference squads on the bubble. Balancing potential, smart roster moves, and some questionable gambles. Now let's break down a few teams ranked 10th through 15th in the West and how they stack up in the NBA overall. Let's talk about New Orleans. Their ranking might surprise some. 10th in the West and 18th overall. This projection depends heavily on which version of Zion Williamson shows up. The Zion who played 30 games last year was great, but can he replicate the 71-game durability from 2 seasons ago? That's always the question. They've also added some nice depth. Trey Murphy, the third, and Jordan Poole. In fact, Poole has become underrated in my opinion. There's a lot of intriguing pieces here if things click. Top players for New Orleans include Zion, a monster, 5.60 rating. Trey Murphy III, ranked 84th with a 3.51. Jordan Poole, 90th at 340. Murray, 96th at 329. Golden State, they're 11th in the West and 19th overall, which honestly feels a bit low for a team with such a storied past. But hey, That's the reality right now. Al Horford hasn't officially signed yet, so he's not in these numbers. And let's be real, you say, he probably won't move the needle much. This is a very seasoned squad. Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry were still ranked among the top 21 players last year, but the inevitable decline is looming. The key piece here, Jonathan Kuminga, ranked 130th, the guy with the potential to elevate this team, but his role constantly up in the air. Golden State's building around a 35-plus age core. So unless they trade Kuminga and reshape things, the ceiling is limited. Still, don't underestimate their tenacity. This team can be feisty, even if the upside isn't sky high anymore. On to the Phoenix Suns. 12th in the West, 21st in the NBA. Mark Williams, ranked 18th with a 4.82 rating, is a gem in this lineup. Honestly, I'd take paying for Williams' potential over the hefty contract Devin Booker carries. Booker's ranked 56th with a 3.86, but he feels a bit overrated in the grand scheme. The Suns' whole experiment, chasing Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, was a bold gambit, but it didn't pan out, partially thanks to CBA changes that nuked their flexibility. Now it's time to reassess. Trading Booker and clawing back draft assets is probably the pragmatic path forward. Next up, Sacramento. 13th in the West, 23rd overall. Not much excitement here. It's another aging team that feels stuck in neutral. Arvydas Sabonis at 12th in player ranking remains their bright spot. And Russell Westbrook is expected to sign, but he's not factored in yet. And let's be honest, he probably won't make a significant impact. Sacramento just looks like they're treading water with limited upside this season. Now on to Portland, 14th in the West, 27th overall. And honestly, I have no idea what this franchise is doing. Trading for Drew Holiday, who ranks 128th, was one of the most baffling moves I've seen. Completely pointless given his contract situation. Denny Avdija ranked 60th, and Shaedon Sharpe at 117th brings some youthful promise, but Grant at 200th and Scoot Henderson at 223rd won't be enough to elevate this team much. They're stuck in a weird limbo, not good enough to win, not bad enough to tank aggressively. And finally, bringing up the rear, dead last in the NBA, we move on to Utah, 15th in the West, 30th overall. Their biggest priority, getting Lauri Markkanen healthy and possibly moving him. Markkanen comes in ranked 105th. The young guys like Ace Bailey, ranked 231st, and Keontae George at 173rd. They'll be taking a lot of shots this season, and this team looks like it's gunning for another high lottery pick, and so don't expect much in terms of contention, and there you have it. That wraps up the Western Conference bottom five, teams searching for identity, or simply biding their time for better days. Whether it's aging cores, mismatched contracts, or full-on rebuilds, there's a little bit of everything down here. Coming up next, we'll shift gears and start breaking down league-wide trends, where the value is, where it isn't, and who's quietly building something real. Stay tuned. All right, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you got some good insights. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who'd find it useful. And don't forget to check out theresourcenexus.com for more in-depth analysis. Until next time, check you later.
Cool. Guess we'll see you around. All right, check you later.